Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary and today's video is going to be another rendition of if you like this book, check out this book. All right, I think I'm a little more centered. This is not going to be the forever backdrop because I just moved, if you're new on this channel. So my library is not fully set up, but this will eventually be the library. I've put some books on the shelves. They will likely not stay there. I will probably move things around, but without further ado, I'm just gonna jump into some of my recommendations. So the first books I want to talk about today are two very popular series. So it's possible that you've read both of these already, but if you hadn't, I wanted to go ahead and pitch them to you side by side. So I recently read A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, and I think if you are a fan of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, you would really enjoy A Darker Shade of Magic. They have a very similar vibe, and the main character in Mistborn is Kelsier, and in A Darker Shade of Magic, it's Kel, and they both have a female companion that is like a younger street urchin type, very street smart character. And I think that if you like that vibe, that dynamic, I think you would like the other series if you've already read one. I hope that makes sense. So Mistborn is a trilogy that actually has like multiple generations to it. So there's the original trilogy, and then there's also a quartet, I believe, which is the next step, which is more of like a steampunk vibe. So Mistborn is an adult fantasy series, and the first book is basically set 1,000 years after this like big war where evil wins in the like battle versus good and evil. And in present day, we're following Kelsier, who has these abilities because in this world you get magic based on ingesting metals. So if you can ingest one metal, then you are a mistling, I think, misting. And if you can ingest all of the metals and have all of the abilities, then you are a mistborn. And in the first book, Kelsier is trying to get together this group of ragtag individuals, including a street urchin named Vin, who is another Mistborn, as you find out. And he's trying to get them together to pull a heist, basically, on the Dark Lord. So that's like the premise of the first Mistborn book. And then the series goes on from there. What I really enjoy about Mistborn is I feel like you can read it as a standalone. Like if you read the first book and then you don't really want to continue, it has a satisfying enough ending to where you don't necessarily have to continue the series, but I think you would probably want to. And if you enjoyed that series, I think you should check out A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which, full disclosure, I have only read the first book in the series so far, but the tone's very similar. A Darker Shade of Magic follows this character Kel, and in this magical world, there are multiple like parallel universes, and they're all versions of London. And there's like White London, Gray London, and Red London, and then maybe in Black London. And Kel is from one of the Londons. I think he's from Red London. And one of the Londons no longer exists anymore because the magic was too powerful, and then Gray London doesn't have any magic. And Kel is able to go between these two worlds, or all of these different versions of London, as kind of like a messenger type. And he ends up meeting this girl whose name I'm not going to remember. Sorry about that. But she reminded me a lot of Vin. So if you like the relationship in Mistborn between Kelsier and Vin, I think you would like the relationship between Kel and the like female companion that he meets. She's also a street urchin. She definitely like gets under his skin a little bit and is a little snarky, a little sassy. And I believe both of these books also have like a romantic subplot that's not like the main part of them. They're between like different dynamics. But yes, I think if you like either one of these books, you should pick up the other one. The next book that I have to recommend, I actually have two readalikes for different reasons. So the first is if you liked A Man Called Uwe, I think you would also like The Vanishing Hour by Lisa King. And the reason is both of these books feature like a curmudgeonly old man character who has to make an unlikely friend as the story goes along, and he becomes a softer, more caring character, and you get to watch him overcome grief from death of a loved one. It's the death of his wife in both of these, and like see value in life again, if that makes sense. A Man Called Uwe follows this man named Uwe in Sweden who is a very curmudgeonly old man, and his wife has recently passed away, and so he's sort of losing faith in humanity, losing his desire to live, really, and he gets it back kind of by befriending this family that lives across the street, or rather they befriend him against his will for the most part. But it's a very like cute, heartwarming, wholesome story. And in a similar vein, Vanishing Hour is a post-apocalyptic book. So there's this disease that ravages the city and kills a bunch of people at the beginning of it. And this old man is stuck in his house because he hears all these noises outside and he doesn't want to leave. But then he comes across a young girl, I think she's like 12, her name's Ruby, and she kind of forces him to get with the picture and like move on from this. But he is also dealing with like the loss of his wife and just like a depression of sorts that comes from that. And also just a depression that I think probably comes from just like getting older and realizing that so much of your life is behind you. But both of these stories involve an older male main character learning that life is still worth living. The other book that I want to recommend, again, for Vanishing Hour. Vanishing Hour is such a good book, and I can't believe nobody talks about it. So I'm just trying to get more people to read it, really. But this other book, I don't know if a ton of people have read either, but it is The Book of M by Ping Shepard. It's another one of my favorite books of all time. And this book is another post-apocalyptic book where there's a disease that comes through, and in The Book of M, the disease makes people lose their shadows. And once you lose your shadow, you start to lose your memory. And then once you lose your memory, it's really dangerous because if you misremember something, the world changes. And so that's like sort of the world that we're in here. And we're following a male main character whose wife loses her shadow and then he can't find her anymore. So she like wanders off one day and he's trying to find his wife to protect her from, again, misremembering things and changing the world too much. And what I liked about both of these books and what I think they have in common is one of my favorite tropes of all time, which is the trope in like a post-apocalyptic setting when all of the characters are trying to get to the same point. So in Vanishing Hour, there's these like radio broadcasts trying to get people to go to a certain, I'm not going to remember the name of it now, but like it's a certain town that they're all trying to find. And in The Book of M, there's like graffiti everywhere and word of mouth that you need to go to New Orleans, that there's a doctor in New Orleans who is helping people. And so it's a very similar vibe. Like that's one of the things that I really love in books. It's one of my favorite tropes of all time, is when everyone, for whatever reason, needs to get to the same spot, and then that's how like the characters' paths cross. So both of these books have that. And I think if you like that trope, I think you would like both of these as options. Next set of books I want to recommend is, I think if you liked The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon, I think you would also like Sundial by Catriona Ward. And the reason I think you would like both of these is they both have kind of an unreliable narrator, and I don't want to say a similar twist because that's not exactly it, but they both have a story that you're not getting the full story as you're reading the book. I hope that makes sense. So Children on the Hill is about, it's almost like a Frankenstein retelling, but it's about these kids who grow up in Vermont and their parents are like kind of conducting experiments. And one of them, it's been a while since I've read this, and apparently a while since I've made this list because I don't remember exactly what happens in this book, but the gist is they end up getting like a foster sibling that comes to live with them in the past timeline. So you're getting the past of these three characters' childhood, and then in the present day, you're getting one of the kids' perspectives while the other kid has gone into hiding and is like a murderer. So that's what that one is about, I think. I hope that's right. And then in Sundial, it's again dual perspective. So the past timeline, we're following the main character who's either Jack or Rob. I cannot remember which twin she is, but she's a twin. And in the past timeline, we're following her and her twin sister growing up on this ranch in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And their parents were conducting experiments, or their dad and their stepmom, I guess, were conducting experiments on dogs. And it was dogs with like a certain aggressive gene that they could do this thing called the click, which would turn off the aggressive gene in the dog. And in the present day, whichever one of the twins, either Jack or Rob, whichever twin we're following, she has two daughters, and one of her daughters is showing really aggressive tendencies. So she's bringing that daughter to the ranch to talk through what's going on. And it's got this like really slow, creepy build that, in my opinion, Catriona Ward does a really good, I don't know if it's Catriona or Catriona, so I'm going to say both because that's just how it's going to be. She does a really good job of building tension and creating this world that feels so real, and then you realize that it's not exactly what's being portrayed. So I've read 2 of her books now, and I've loved both of them, Sundial and The Last House on Needless Street, and they both involve an unreliable narrator. And I don't think that's a spoiler to say for either of them. Like, they both have a really big twist, which you know, and neither of them had a twist that I was really expecting. So anyways, I think if you like the unreliable narrator thing, if you like the dual timelines, messing with who the narrator is, and like what's going on, and like sort of being lied to by the narrator. If you like that, I think you would like both of these. The next book I want to talk about, I again have 2 recommendations for, or 2 like read-alikes for, and it's I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. And this book, I think if you liked either 13 Reasons Why, and I don't remember the author's name of that, that's terrible, or Paper Towns by John Green, I think if you liked either of those books, I think you would also like I Kissed Shara Wheeler. It is a young adult, like contemporary romance type thing. It's a lot lighter than 13 Reasons Why. So there's that, because 13 Reasons Why is a YA book that's been made into a TV show now, that I'm pretty sure was very controversial. But it's about this girl who commits suicide, and she leaves 13 notes about the reasons why she did it. And we're following one character as he's reading each of these notes, almost on like a scavenger hunt type thing, to try to like figure out what he did that made her want to kill herself. Pretty fucked up, to be honest. I read it in junior high and was really into it, which is alarming. But the reason that I think that is similar to I Kissed Shara Wheeler is I Kissed Shara Wheeler is about a teenager in Alabama who disappears from her private Christian school. No one has seen her in days. She's gone missing, and the people who come out to look for her are all people who have kissed her. So there's the main character, who's a girl whose name I'm not going to remember. There's a boy who I think's name is Smith, and then also her boyfriend, I think, is what it is. So there's, I think, 3 characters who have all kissed Shara Wheeler and are trying to find her now. And then she does leave them notes and scavenger hunt type things. And if you've read Paper Towns, you might know why I'm going to recommend that for this as well. Paper Towns is a John Green book about a teenage girl who is very manic pixie dream girl. It's from the perspective of this boy, who I believe is played by one of the Wolf brothers in the movie, and the girl is played by that model with the really big eyebrows who made bushy eyebrows a thing in the 2010s, Cara Delevingne. So that's fun. I've never seen that movie, and it's actually my least favorite John Green book, fun fact. But I think if you liked the aspect of it, that is the scavenger hunt, where they're trying to find Margot Roth Spiegelman, and it's this guy and his friends, because he thinks for some reason that she's like in danger. And I'm not going to spoil how it ends, but it's not even like, I don't know, it's just about they're both about building someone up to be this like really big monolith, and then it turns out they're just a person, like it's just a girl. And that's what I really enjoyed about I Kissed Shara Wheeler. So I feel like I might like Paper Towns better as an adult, oddly. But I remember reading it as a teenager and really disliking the way that she was being so built up and like was inevitably going to disappoint everyone around her. That really like hit me as a teenager, but I didn't like it. Like, I don't know. It hit too close to home, maybe? I'm not really sure. But I just like, both of these books follow like really complex characters that are being really built up in the minds of the people that love them, think they love them, like them, but turns out don't really know them that well. And I think if you like that aspect, I think you would like both of these. And the last read-alike I have for you is if you liked The Dutch House by Anne Patchett, I think you would also like Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. I personally preferred The Dutch House to Hello Beautiful, but they are both like long-running family stories that really focus on family drama and family relationships coming together and falling apart. And they both span like 50 plus years with the same characters. And they're both not very long, which is crazy that they're able to accomplish that much. But The Dutch House mainly follows this brother and sister duo whose dad is like a real estate mogul, and they live in this house called the Dutch House when they're kids. And their mom leaves their family when they're very young, and their dad ends up remarrying, and he remarries someone who's basically like a wicked stepmom. And when their dad dies, she kicks both of the kids out of the house, and they have to figure out what they're gonna do and like how they're gonna survive. And they spend the rest of their lives obsessed with this house and trying to get back into this house. It's honestly insane the lengths they go to try to like stay relevant for this house. But it's more than just that. It's about their like relationship with each other. It's about the fact that they never really knew their parents that well, and like learning as you grow up that like your parents are people, and how hard that would be, especially if you haven't seen your parents since you were a child. I don't know, when you're a kid, your parents are like God, basically. Like they're everything. They know exactly what's going on. And then as you grow up, and the more you spend time with your parents, if you have like a good relationship with them, you might get to hear like behind the scenes stories of your childhood where like they didn't really know what they were doing. They were just people. So it's just interesting seeing that from the perspective of someone who did not get to grow up with their parents, basically, and had to like learn that their parents were flawed in retrospect. I don't know if that makes sense, because it is in retrospect anyways, but that's the Dutch House. And Hello Beautiful is similar. We're primarily following this family of 4 daughters in Chicago, and we're also following this character named William. And William is from Boston, but he ends up going to college out in Chicago, and he meets one of the sisters. I don't know if it's the oldest or the second child. Regardless, Julia. And they fall in love, get married, and then it's about his relationship with her and his relationship with like the memory of his parents, because his sister died when he was a baby. And so his parents never really loved him. Like, he felt like he should have been the one to go because they loved his sister so much, and then they lost her. So he never knew her, but he knew that she like basically absorbed all of the love that his parents could have. And they just never got over her loss. Not that you ever get over the loss of a child, but like they were never able to come to terms with the fact that he was also their child, basically. And all of the like grief that he deals with for that. And you just follow him and these sisters for like 50 plus years, and you watch this family in Chicago, how their relationships with each other deteriorate, which is so interesting to read about. And it's one of the reasons I like reading about family relationships so much, like the things that bring us together and the things that tear us apart. There's also like in both of these books, there's like death of a loved one, obviously, like a lot of really sad stuff happening, but it is just like so fascinating to read a book about these people's lives. And I think if you liked one, I think you should give the other one a shot, because they're very similar in like storytelling devices. But those are 6-ish books that I think if you like one, you will like the other one. So I think it's worth a shot. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books and how you felt about them, or if you have any other recommendations for me based on me liking all of these books for whatever reason. You can explain it in the comments down below if you want. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to my channel, because I do try to post 2 videos every week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!